considered as important areas for the species and can be candidate marine areas. Final marine areas can be determined by overlaying some candidate marine areas identified for different species with different ways. Here is an example of seabird extension using a four-range radius of the Japanese mullet. Here is another example of marine identification using the Japanese mullet occurrence data and environmental data. We run a habitat model to predict a potential distribution of mullets. This map shows that mullets are expected to occur in these red areas. Again, these red areas could be candidate marine areas. Protecting habitat for the Japanese mullet is important, and designating marine areas is a first step towards its habitat conservation. However, we also think cooperation with local people and fishermen is equally important for the mullet conservation. Now let me introduce our conservation activities which are promoted with local people on Miyakima Island. We have conducted surveys on the Japanese mullet together with local fishermen and shared the information about birds with them. In addition, we have been proceeding the introduction of ecotourism, which can raise awareness for conserving the species and produce economical merit to the local society. We have also set up some voluntary rules for model observe. Furthermore, in order that people realize the value of the Japanese mullet and the need to protect the birds, we have been promoting environment education for local junior high school students and holding musical concerts, making the species as a theme. So to conclude, the northern island is probably the second largest concentration of birds in Japan with some breeding colonies. Second, designation of marine areas is the first step towards the Japanese mullet habitat conservation. And lastly, locally managed conservation is a crucial, and we need more effort by, for example, promoting ecotourism and environmental education with fishermen and local people. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yamamoto-san. Sorry we're breezing through this. This is to keep you awake because it's after lunch. The next presentation is from the Philippines, so we go down south to the Philippines. So Marivic Pajaro, Dr. Pajaro is a research manager of the research department of Haribon Foundation in the Philippines.
So to meet the IDG targets, we focus on the community-based resource managers' role in protecting and conserving marine resources. So in the Philippines, we have over 1,000. 10 years ago, it was over 500, but now it has jumped up to this much number, and there are even several proposed, and I guess there are more being proposed. And this was the date of as of 2007. This doesn't mean, however, that we have reached already the 20% or the 10% target, because these are community-based mostly, and they may be 1 hectare to just over 1,000 or over 10,000 or less than 100,000 hectares. So they are small, and that's because communities can only handle managing small MPAs or small marine protected areas. And they always usually have core zones or no-take areas. So the role of the indigenous and local communities have been recognized since way back by the Convention on Biodiversity in 2004 in terms of their participation in establishment, monitoring, and evaluation. From our experience, the participation of the local people has increased compliance and reduced user conflicts, and at the same time, along the process of establishment and managing them, people are able to gather together, discuss, be informed, and they develop plans and strategies along the way. So this one here shows how we're developing indicators for them to monitor whether they have been reaching their targets of why they set up their marine protected areas. So it turns out that sometimes they don't even really know why they were protecting it in terms of how the outsiders view it. So we talk of conserving and conservation and protection, but they will talk about how it relates to their income, to education. So those were some of the indicators that they had come up with, together with increased fish catch, etc. So the terms of conservation, protection usually doesn't come up. There are challenges to participation, and I will particularly highlight the role of women. I don't know if you can see it here, but in the recent times, before it was always the fishers, fishers were men, but there have been several instances where the women now go fishing also. In this case, this lady couldn't be sent to school, so she ends up fishing. The wives also go out fishing now with the husband. So instead of 2 men fishers going out, so that they could pull their incomes together, the wives go with their husbands to fish and leaves their daughter to look after the younger siblings. So it's evolving, and when I looked at the participation in terms of establishment and in monitoring and evaluation, the women always were fewer in number. And I just put this up in terms of education. Those who are in school, the youth particularly, are they're the ones given the opportunity to go to school. So the families, the husband, the fishers, and the wives would end up encouraging the men to go and go to school. So the women are the ones staying behind, and therefore they are the ones that will go out and gather go gleaning and look after food security, and also manage the finances of the homes. So they are very enterprising. As you can see, they're the ones who sell the fishes of their husbands. And interestingly too, the women, when I was doing my work on looking at the developing indicators with the communities, the women are the ones ending up doing the writing. They are always the secretary or the treasurer kind of role. But the men are the ones reporting. So I think for management and for sustaining resource management, we should be looking at roles of women too. So when I was doing my study also on developing indicators, along the way, they were encouraged to feedback what they have been finding out in their monitoring to the mayors and to other officials, government officials, executives. And when they were presenting it, they got so passionate, and so they end up getting support from the local government. So when they were saying, we don't have effective patrolling, and that's because we don't have boats or we don't have engines. So somehow, because of that discussion, then there is some support that's given by local governments. And within the community as well, as they discuss, they do their feedback and validation sessions, there will be discussions that will be generated. So there was one instance, for example, when they were putting up their results in terms of within the no-take zones. They were wondering why the fishes weren't really showing that they were more diverse or there was more fishes. And so the reflection was that, well, because there are still fishers that are doing using nets. And you know what? These fishers that are using nets are not even from our village. So that generates some discussion, and they end up thinking about what it would do. And so they thought that probably it would be better if they had some buffer zone where only hook and line fishing would be allowed, and if they could set up some system where, because they're the ones looking after the patrolling, then they're the ones that are supposed to be given exclusive rights for that. But we need to scale up, and as the IEG target says, we use the ecosystem-based approach, and we want to be looking at connectivity, etc., and also how it can be more resilient because of climate change. Because we have so many little MPAs that are community-based. So, for example, we have this one where several municipalities are located here. Then they have to work together so that they could have more effective network of MPAs. However, we should also be looking at social networks. And it was found out that, for example, when several local governments will be working together to do patrols, for example, they can pool their resources, and both human and financial, then they can more effectively patrol their seas. Haribon has also been engaged in the establishment, the building of an alliance of the marine protected area managers. As I said, there's so many little MPAs in the Philippines, most of them village-based. So in 1998, we were able to bring them together in one Congress, and later on, they decided to connect themselves or organize themselves into chapters according to bays or gulfs. And now there's about 122 MPA members. So the membership is the MPAs, and they are organized into wide chapters. So in scaling up from the village level to the provincial, national, international, Risa has mentioned about integrated coastal management. So usually that's at the, from the village to municipal and national level. So we consider local in the Philippines as from the village and the provincial and municipal level. So there's been a lot of efforts. For instance, these efforts too have brought together donor agencies, NGOs, government, to advocate for marine protected area management effectiveness. At the grassroots level, we have seen earlier that they have been organized up to the national level. So the different villages, they came up together and built a national alliance. So this is a congress that they had years ago, but always funding is a problem. But I think a big gap, and I think it's also recognized, is how they can be internationalized. How can they be joining also in the international level? What we discuss here, now that I can relate to what's happening. We will have a meeting in September when I go back, end of September, and I can share with them whatever is here. What are these Aichi targets? They wouldn't know that unless someone will share it to them. But how can we engage them in international forums like this? So just some of the highlights of the learnings and recommendations. As we have seen earlier, the information that has been generated can bring immediate action when you communicate them with the executives, particularly the government and donors, and building the capacity to use those information for negotiation and conflict management. So we would engage them in monitoring and evaluation, but hopefully that's not just for data gathering. They should be able to know, they should be able to have access to the information. And this access, how can they also use that? So, for example, when they gave the feedback to the mayors, that has been a source for them to negotiate with them for support. So it can be a stepping stone for other management initiatives. The village level management planning for their marine resources could be part of this integrated coastal management that's being mandated by for governments to come up with. So sometimes it's just for compliance. These local governments, because there's an executive order, then they'll want to do that. But if the village level plans can be integrated into that, then perhaps there'll be better management that will be implemented. So a more effective management implementation. Future studies on ecosystem-based management should integrate local participation. This is the scaling up thing. So hopefully it's not just ecological networks that should be looked at, but also social networks. How do we integrate these local initiatives up to the national and the international level? So we talk about a lot of how local can participate, but the voices of these local people, it's us bringing it up here that it would be nice to see them really directly in here as well. There have been some instances, I think, some sessions where I've heard them, but then different kind of engagement. I'm hoping that we were talking of membership, something expansion of memberships. I wonder how this could integrate these local people to IUCN membership as well. So I believe that sustainability can be more valuable if the local agenda is linked with national and international levels of governance. So if they are brought here as a member. For example, right now, the advocacy of this alliance is giving them more incentives because they are usually volunteers, as you also saw perhaps in Lisa's slide. They are mostly volunteers. They don't have insurance. They become sick or they even get murdered. There's no support. So there were several instances where the alliance funds we had to give to the families for help with burial. So there are other advocacies that they have successfully been able to do through Haribon's help. For example, the establishment of environmental courts. So there are a few other agendas. Instead of municipal waters, hopefully it should be the barangay or the village level of the authority to manage their marine protected areas. Hopefully it could be down to the village level instead of the municipal level.
Rick, I need to cut you off because...
And that's already the end actually.
Thank you very much. So the next presentation is again from Japan, and we have a presentation from Mitsutaka Makino, who is the head of the Fisheries Management Group of the National Research Institute of Fisheries Science in Japan.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My talk is about the relationships between
Japanese fisheries management and marine protected area. Right. Japanese are very well known as the biggest stomach in the world. As you can see, this is the ancient bone of red siblings, and you can see that people in 3,500 years ago cut siblings into fillet and maybe enjoying sashimi. Okay, please let me explain a little bit about the institutional framework of Japanese fisheries management. In Japan, fisheries cooperative associations, that is the organization of local small-scale fishers, have the priority in the allocation of fishing rights. This is fishing rights, not the license or privileges, fishing rights. So this is legally very strong right. Okay? And the representatives from the local fishers organized fisheries coordinating committee. This committee decides how and in which part of the coastal area the fishing rights should be granted. Okay? They have